All right, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So very sorry for my tardiness. I was not able to find the link, so thank you, Ms. Solomon, for sending that over.
You're more than welcome.
Let's see here. Who do we have with us? It looks like Commissioner Bryant. Is that you at 9819?
This is he.
Okay, all right. Happy New Year to you, sir. Um, let's see here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, very well. Um, It looks like we've got quite a few commissioners here. So staff, would you please sound roll call to establish a quorum or to at least let the others know which commissioners are present?
Yes, sir. Commissioner Miller, Commissioner Mark Fields, Commissioner Presley,
Present.
Commissioner,
My apologies. Microphone.
thank you. Commissioner Van, Commissioner McKnight,
I think Commissioner McKnight is here.
Yes,
Commissioner,
can you hear me?
yes,
Yes, we can now.
Yep, present.
thank you. Commissioner Lovett,
Present.
Commissioner Bryant,
Present.
Commissioner Joseph Fields.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, you have a quorum.
All right, thank you so very much. I also just saw while you were reading off or doing roll call, Ms. Solomon, that one of the applicants has requested that the link be sent out to his client, I believe. If you would see that as well.
Yeah, this is Jeff Haymore. Taylor, if you could email that to me, I'm in and one of my clients is, but another is having difficulty. I apologize for that. I think you're on mute.
I am on mute. I'm sorry. I do have Trey and Ashley on the attendee side. I can also move them over to a panelist, and then I'll also send your link to send to your other client as well.
Thank you. Ashley wanted to be a panelist so that she can, oh, I see she's on now.
Yes.
Okay, we're good. Thanks.
Okay. 1 second.
Okay. Okay, very well. Commissioners, we've got 3 new cases this evening. We've got a map amendment, a rezoning, and a rezoning with 5 concurrent variances. Our first application this evening is 2023C as in Charlie, P as in Paul, A as in Alpha -001-12. The applicant is the city of East Point. And so at this time, I will turn the floor over to Director Smith and her team in our Department of Community and Planning Development, Community Development and Planning. And for the record, please allow the record to reflect that we have also been joined by Commissioner Mark Fields. Commissioner Fields, could you please unmute and just state present?
Present.
Thank you so much.
All right, Mr. Chair, in
Yes.
reference to item number 1, case number 2023 CPA-001-12, the applicant is the city of East Point, and the case type is a map amendment. This will be a city-initiated map amendment to update the future land use map of the city of East Point. The specific section that we are looking into and will look into over the entire city of East Point will be the future land use maps. We did go over the comprehensive plan, which was approved by city council and before this board. And so we did want to make sure that all of the maps were aligned with what was approved during that time. Some of the portion that we will be starting off with will be the Harold Sheets Parkway area where some of the properties are located in the downtown overlay district. As you all can see, the current future land use designation does share traditional urban neighborhood as well as town center sub-area 2, which will be our Lawrence Street future land use designation. As you can see, that portion with the vision and the intent, there are future home-like mixed uses, walkable, pedestrian-friendly neighborhoods. And some of the goals are listed on the right. And so some of the zoning districts that are typical are CR, MIX, BP, I1, EI, MI, OIT is also not a zoning district within the city of East Point anymore. For clarification, C1, CL, C2, and MXCI. Staff did notice that some of the, and I'll go back for you all to see that some of the industrial portions were labeled as traditional urban neighborhood, but they are industrial. And so we did want to just update the zoning maps, but we will need a little bit more time to work on this. So when it comes for the work session, we will be asking for a deferral.
Okay, so just so that I'm clear and other commissioners are as well, staff will be working on map amendments to align with the comprehensive development plan.
Yes, sir.
And if I hear what you're saying this evening is that this is not yet ready for us to have any type of substantive dialogue on. And so the staff will be requesting a deferral of this. Why a deferral and why not just remove it from the agenda altogether? Has it been advertised?
It has already been advertised. So that's why I did want to state that it'll have to be recommended for deferral for us to work on it a little more.
Okay, thank you. So, so commissioners, staff is not really quite ready to present this. There's quite a bit more work that they would need to do. It has been advertised, and as legally required, once it is advertised, we must then have a public hearing for it. So they will be requesting a deferral for next week's commission meeting. Are there any questions of staff? Okay, hearing none and seeing none. Thank you so much, Ms. Solomon.
You're welcome.
Our next agenda item, number 2, is 2023Rs in Robert Z as in zebra -002-12. The address is 1500 Naval Avenue. It is a rezoning. Is the applicant present this evening?
Mr. Chair, I do not see the applicant here this evening. If we could go to item number 3 while I try to contact them and see if they're available for this evening, I would appreciate it.
Perfect.
Thank
Our
you.
next agenda item is number 3, 2023Rs in Robert Z as in zebra -001-12. The address is 0 East Washington, parcel number 140125 LL, land lot 0309. This is a rezone with 5 concurrent variances. And I do believe that the applicant's BFG Acquisitions LLC is present this evening, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, you have the floor. And if you need screen sharing capabilities, please let Ms. Solomon know, and she will grant you those capabilities.
Yes, thank you. That would be great. I'd love to share my screen. We've got a few slides that we'd like to share.
Mr. Haymore, you're able to share your screen.
All right. All right, can you see that?
We can.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you. Good evening, Chairman Atkins and members of the Planning Commission. My name is Jeff Haymore. I'm a zoning attorney at Dillard Sellers in Atlanta. Our address is 1776 Peachtree Street here in Atlanta. We represent the applicant, and this is my first time in front of the Planning Commission, and I'm grateful to be here. I previously worked at the City of Atlanta advising its planning commission, the zoning review board. And so I appreciate and understand the important role that you play in the city of East Point. As the screen shows, we've got a few slides that we'd like to go through just to introduce the proposed development and the zoning request. And I'll turn some time briefly over to Ashley Madsen, who's on the development team, to share a little bit of that site plan. So with that, again, we have a rezoning and concurrent variance application at 0 Washington Avenue. Just to show you where that is, and just please let me know if I'm not sharing my screen correctly. But this is where it's at, if you can see that overview. It's at the end of Washington Avenue in the East Washington neighborhood. It is currently an undeveloped piece of property, which was formerly the Longview Mobile Home Park development. And this picture is a little bit older. The mobile homes are not there. It's a vacant piece of property that my client proposes to redevelop. Just to give you a little bit more of an overview of what the lot looks like, it's a flag lot, and so has very little frontage along Washington Avenue. Has quite a bit of frontage along Norman Berry Drive, but not necessarily direct access. Norman Berry Drive sits very much lower than the property, but that's where it is. And so some of that unique topography and shape is driving some of the concurrent variances that we seek, and I'll discuss that in just a second. In terms of land use, we are in the redevelopment neighborhood land use character area, as they call it, which is highlighted there in the purple. And then over there to the sort of the east, or on the right, on the other side of Norman Berry, is Regional Center. Next, in terms of zoning, we are currently zoned R1A, which is called urban residential. We are surrounded to the west and to the south and to the east by the blue, which is medical institutional. The 2 star parcels are the ones that we are under contract to redevelop. Across the street, just to the south, is multifamily residential, multi-story multifamily residential that's being rehabilitated and occupied currently as we speak. As I said, our request is to rezone from R1A to R4 for new 218 unit affordable family residence with an amenity package. The concurrent variances that we seek are to reduce the minimum unit size from 1,100 with 800 square feet on the ground floor to no minimum, that will provide the flexibility that we need to develop affordable floor plans and unit mixes. The second one is to reduce the open space requirement from 25% to 15%, driven by, as I mentioned earlier, our lot width and topography. To reduce the number of amenities from 7 to 5. Ashley will go over this in just a second, but we are proposing a clubhouse of a little over 1,800 square feet, a pavilion and gazebo, a fenced tot lot, a fenced dog park, and a nature trail. The fourth variance is to reduce the parking space distance from the property line from 10 feet to 0 feet. Again, at that flag portion, our lot is extremely narrow, and we need a reduction there in order to install parking into the development. And then finally, to increase our maximum building height from 45 to 50 feet. The property sits substantially lower than the site to our immediate west. And let me just go back to sort of show you that. You can look at this slide, sort of up to the top of this slide is the adjacent property, which are mobile homes to the west of us, and they sit substantially higher. And so there won't be any adverse impact to surrounding properties Again, we're sort of the last use before it drops substantially off to Norman Berry Way. So with that, I'll just turn some time over to Ashley to walk you through the site plan and then show you a few proposed elevations.
Thank you, Jeff. Good evening, everyone. Hope everyone's having a good night so far. As Jeff mentioned, we are asking to rezone the site from R1A to R4 with the 5 concurrent variances, as he just mentioned. Our goal of this property is to utilize the R4 zoning and variances we're requesting to bring this property to what we think is its highest and best use. As you can see per the site plan, this would consist of 5 surface parked apartment buildings, which would bring the community around 218 new residences, as well as multiple new amenities. If we start to the right of the site plan, the entrance of the property is currently shown as being located along Washington Avenue with surface parking spread evenly throughout. The variance that Jeff mentioned, requesting that 10-foot to 0-foot variance is, as you can see, right along that dogleg. And since much of the site has very steep topography, grading would be done in multiple areas, along with the construction of new site retaining walls, as you can see via the red lines shown surrounding the buildable portion of the site. And since the previous use of this site was as a mobile home park, new underground detention facilities would be provided as well, tying into the existing stormwater infrastructure located on Norman Berry Drive. If you look to the far left of the site plan, you can see we're also showing a hammerhead turnaround for fire access near the last building as well. And then for the site trees, they are placed throughout with landscaping being placed between both the parking and the buildings. And along the slope near Norman Berry, a variety of container-sized saplings would also be planted. That steep topography and grade just doesn't allow for larger trees to be planted there, but they grow into the slope and kind of grow in. And then finally, we have amenities planned all throughout the site, as Jeff had mentioned. Starting at the first 2 buildings near the entrance, we have a dog run and a playground, along with a gazebo closer to the 3rd building. Next to the dog run, there is a nature trail that will extend throughout the majority of the site and end before the last building. And then last but not least, there's also a clubhouse located at the front of the very last building. And then if Jeff goes to the next couple slides, we wanted to kind of provide y'all a visual of what these buildings could look like. This view is from Norman Berry Drive from the north looking to the south. This current view does not show that steep topography and grade that I had mentioned previously, but it was more to just kind of give a visual of how the buildings could look once placed on the site. These next 2 slides just show a couple different views of, again, what the buildings could look like. I do want to mention that this current concept is an example, as the final unit mix and complex will be determined based on what we figure out will be the best to serve the area and community, what the best offering is. But that being said, I'll stop there. I'll kick it back to Jeff for any final comments. Thanks, excited to be here.
Yeah, thanks, Ashley. This is really the end of our presentation because I know you might have questions, and so we didn't want to take too much of time presenting. And so with that, we really just are here to answer any questions that you can. Hopefully we can, and if we can't, we'll be sure to get you those answers ahead of next week's public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Haymore. Thank you, Ms. Madsen. I'll start off with a few questions, and then I see the hand of Commissioner Lovett. With this particular development and your request from R1A to R4, is the 100% affordable housing model the only model that your client has considered for this site?
So we like to consider just what the market kind of requires. We like to offer affordable housing, whether it be between the 60% and the 80% AMI, whether it be a mix of market rent and then that in addition. It really just depending on where the market is and just what we think would be the best use for the community and best offering, that's how it's determined. But we do like to offer a significant amount of affordable units.
Okay, so I would surmise from that, Ms. Madsen, that the client has not considered anything other than affordable housing.
Yes, true.
Okay. In your presentation, Ms. Madsen, you stated that you believe that this presentation and what the client is offering is the highest and best use of the parcel. Can you unpack that a little bit and tell us why you feel that this is the highest and best use for this parcel?
Yes, absolutely. So our goal is to bring to the community a dense product, but also a high value product. Just due to the current market and just because we think over the next couple of years it won't change that much, offering something that, for example, single family homes just won't be the best thing to provide the community. So our goal is to provide not only a product for people to move into that's a high value, but also to just bring amenities to the community and just have like just a better site overall rather than what it is now.
Okay, so making an improvement over what it is now, that bar is not very high. We saw the photos that were a part of the presentation, and we understand that it was a mobile home park. So that bar is not very high. So to improve on that may not necessarily mean that it is the highest and best use.
True, yes, but unfortunately, due to the market and just the volatility of it currently, the only thing that really works is a high use. Unfortunately, we cannot get financing, or the economies of scale does not meet the need that we have in order to build a smaller product. So being able to get enough units to be able to build this is really the biggest determining factor. If we were to build, let's say 50 units, just due to how expensive construction is and financing, lenders are not willing to finance deals such as that. So higher density just really is the only thing that works that we've kind of come to realize. And so we think that that would be the best use for this property as well.
Yeah, and I think I would also add.
My argument, just
sorry.
one second, Mr. Haymore. My argument is not necessarily about the density. I appreciate the density. I think that the density is important.
Mhm.
My concern is that it's a 100% affordable housing development. Now, what you've just said, Ms. Madsen, is that you think that this is what the community requires. Explain that a little bit, because I would hope that, and when you say community, describe community, define community when you say community.
I would say the community is everyone kind of surrounding the city of East Point. We are finishing up the complex right across the street, and so are bringing back 100 units. I think in order to bring more people and to just increase just allow people to kind of keep coming to East Point, and just, Jeff,
Okay.
if you want
And
Yeah,
when you
and
talk
that's-
about the property across the street, I'll complete my line of questions, then I'll recognize you. Just one second, Mr. Haymore, I'm sorry. And when you talk about the property across the street, are you speaking of Washington Carver?
yes, correct.
Okay, and your client owns that as well?
Yes, correct.
And what percentage of that is affordable?
That percentage is, I believe, 100%. It is between the 60% and 80% AMI.
Yeah, I thought it was 100% as well. So what in essence we're talking about is you're familiar with the area. I'm assuming you're very familiar with that area, the subject area. So you do know that within a 1 mile radius that there's also Martell Homes, which is public housing, correct?
Mhm.
I don't understand that. You do realize that Martell Homes within that 1 mile radius is 100% public housing, right?
Yes,
Okay, and so then your client also across the street from this parcel has developed and owns Washington Carver, which is also 100% affordable, right?
yes,
Okay, and on the other side of Norman Berry is Norman Berry Village, which is, you're familiar with that development?
yes.
Okay, so that's 100% tax credit senior. And then there are some others. And so when you talk about community in the East Point community, it would be my hope that as you and your client are, I guess, imagining what this development could be, that it is for the future of East Point.
Mhm.
But it sounds like it's for what you're saying that's currently there. That's the way I took your definition of community. And please correct me if I'm wrong.
Gotcha. I may have misspoken also. Our goal is to offer what, like you had just said, the future of East Point. So we're not focused on keeping it as it is now. So wherever we are at when this will be built, when it's actually able to be rented and people move in, rents are determined on that. So if we want the future of East Point, if we're looking 3 years in the future, those rents will be determined based on not just affordable, but just where the community is at that point in time. We are focused towards the future is what I'm trying to say as well.
Okay. Mr. Haymore, I'm going to recognize you. You had a few questions, and so I'm going to give you the floor.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes. So next Sunday, a week from Sunday, we're going to be meeting with the East Washington Neighborhood Association. We held the CZIM at which the vice president attended. We've had conversations with them. We've reached out to the neighbor adjacent to us. We've sent all the mailers, and we fielded a phone call from one recipient. And so we will be meeting in person at the neighborhood association meeting, and we will be receiving that feedback. And if that feedback is to make changes to the site plan, to the unit mix, what that might be, we are flexible there. In terms of affordability, it's not in the legal sense of subsidized housing or a specific AMI. It is actually said it's market rate, and that may be an affordable price relative to other parts of the city of East Point or other parts of different areas within the region. I hope that's helpful.
I appreciate that information. Thank you very much. At this time, I'm going to recognize Commissioner Lovett.
Good evening, and thank you for your presentation. A couple of 3 questions. The first one is the Longview sign that I see there. What's to the right of that? Is that the hill that's going up into the property, or is that a structure?
Oh, that's a great question. Let me see if I can. To answer your question, is the Union Missionary Baptist Church. I was going to see if I've got a better view, and I really don't. But this little, if you can see my cursor, this parcel here is occupied by the Union Missionary Baptist Church. That's Pastor Banks. We have attempted to reach out to him by voicemail. We dropped a letter in his mailbox, and we've knocked on his door. And the community association vice president is hoping that he will be present at the community meeting next Sunday. But that's what that use is right there. So that's a church just to the right.
Okay, thank you. Then the next question I have is that you are talking about affordability. What's your price point?
Well, these will be rental prices. Ashley, do you know offhand what those will be?
I do not know the actual rents themselves, but if they do fall between those AMIs based on, it'll be market rate versus the 60, between that 60% and 80% AMI, but I can't say off the top of my head what those actually are.
We'll have that to you for next Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, insofar as the actual land that you are thinking about, this is a new build, and I did hear you say that mobile homes were on this property prior to now. So the question is, what was on the land before the mobile homes? What I am looking for is basically what was there, the water table, what kind of condition is this land on that you are expecting to put a building on or several buildings on?
To answer your question, I do not personally know what the use was before the mobile homes. I do believe the mobile homes were there for many decades.
Mhm.
But we can look back at our title search and see if there was a use prior to the mobile homes. I suspect there was not any planned development prior to that, but I don't know that. And so I would love to get that answered for you next Thursday.
So this property, does it go into the mobile home, or what is the separation between the two
Take that.
living spaces?
We can drink this soup.
Just one
Right, so-
second, Commissioner, just one second, Mr. Haymore. If you're not speaking, could you please mute your devices? If you're not speaking, or if you do not have the floor, would you please mute your devices? Ms. Solomon, could you please make sure that everyone is muted but for the applicants and Commissioner Lovett at this time? Thank you. I'm sorry, go ahead, Mr. Haymore.
Sure. So this image here shows the driveway into the existing property at that flag location. And so if you were to, drive out there tomorrow and look at it, you'd see this driveway. And then as you get further into the site, it branches out. And there are, private driveways. Let me see if this photo helps a little bit. So if you can see my arrow or my cursor, you go into this development and it branches out via various, private drives. And again, this photo here is, from some years ago. The mobile homes are not there anymore. They've all been removed. And if you were to come down Washington Avenue, you would pass over or pass by KIPP Academy, South Fulton, and then right past the church, Washington Avenue, it simply dead ends. It does not connect down to Norman Berry, if you can see my cursor here, because there's tremendous topography between where we sit at Longview and Norman Berry, much, much, much lower. And then again, to our immediate west, if you can sort of see these aerials, these are individual mobile homes outside of our parcel. And then further to the west are various single family residents, mostly older, some very well kept up, some in rehabilitation, various states there. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. That concludes my questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Lovett. Thank you for those responses, Mr. Haymore and Ms. Mattson. Commissioners, anyone else have any questions of Mr. Haymore or Ms. Mattson? Okay, I have a few more. Ms. Mattson, you started to talk about the reason that you're asking for the variances in terms of the density and the amount of units, and that banks were not, I can't exactly remember how you phrased it, I guess, so willing to finance these projects. Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
So a lot of the other projects that we see happening in some of the surrounding municipalities that are not affordable, would that be a different model, different banks, different interest rates that your client may be able to get? Are you able to speak to that? Because just being in the industry, I know that banks are funding a lot of things, and I don't know if it's the lender that your client is going to or any of those things.
So I don't know if you're speaking of like any projects in particular. That'd be helpful if you had some examples, but normally there's kind of economies of scale to it all. So if we're thinking of building a certain product, if we, like apartments, our bread and butter is apartments. And so what we can offer basically is banks will only lend on a certain loan to cost. And so due to just the increases in construction prices for the products that we build, whether it be concrete, steel, wood, those changes, and then just the different rents that we can get. If it's in an area, like let's say it's right next to the Beltline, for example, those different projects right next to the Beltline, because there are higher rents and because they're already significantly developed in a way, it's easier to build a less dense product just because there is that ability to kind of meet in the middle between the construction costs and what the banks are willing to provide, because the banks don't want to have that risk if an area is not at a point where we kind of know where the rents are going, because East Point is kind of up and coming. In the future, it'll be interesting to see how those rents kind of go. So the product is kind of determined based on what banks are really the risk they're willing to take. And the ones that we have been speaking to really do want that kind of density.
Okay. You talked about the product that you offer. Speak a little more about the product that you offer for a project of this type as it relates to the finishes.
So the finishes we normally offer, we do LVT. So we like to do that to offer more of a luxury finish, but affordable. We do stainless steel appliances. We will have tile in the bathrooms, that kind of stuff. So it's not, they're higher end versus some of the older vintages that some buildings have that are not new, but they're also affordable as well.
The project that your client owns across the street, Washington Carver, what amenities are available at that particular development? What I'm really trying to get at is one of the variances is to reduce the number of amenities from 7 to 5. So I hear that you want to offer a dog park, a walking trail, a clubhouse. What are some of the other amenities that this particular developer normally provides?
So we like to provide a variety of amenities depending on what the site kind of allows. For that particular project, we kind of thought about different kinds that we could do. There, if I'm remembering correctly, I wasn't on that project, so I'd have to look back at my notes, but they offer bike racks. We have a gazebo there as well. I believe there was talk of installing a playground at some point, depending on what area of the site we'd want to put it on. So those talks are kind of still in the mix right now, but we do want to offer amenities on that side as well. And I can get you an exact list of what is in the plans for that.
Other than the amenities that the 5 that you're proposing to provide here, what else could go on this site as it relates to an amenity for the families that would potentially live there?
That is a great question. Since the site is it's pretty tight due to the topography and it just being so extreme, we've tried to fit as many as we possibly can. We could fit additional like bike racks and just smaller amenities throughout, but the ones that we have planned shown on this property, we think kind of best fit and just give us the ability to have as many as we can, but just due to the site's odd shape, it would be hard to fit any additional.
Okay.
But if there is any feedback from the community of different ones that they would want rather than the ones that we are presenting, we're totally open to adjusting and fitting those spaces with something else.
Is it tight to fit because of the topography only, or also is that coupled with the number of units that you're trying to put on the site?
Yes. Yeah, that's definitely one of the reasons. We're trying to match the units to the number of parking spaces we can get. So we're trying to meet a 1-to-1 ratio. So with that 218, and that unit mix will change depending on when this would be built, like what the best unit mix would be. It might be just 1 beds, it might be a mix of 2s, 3s. So that unit count will probably change. So that would also adjust the building footprint also. This plan that we're showing is kind of just an example of what the highest density kind of would be.
Okay. Mr. Haymore, am I assuming correctly that you actually prepared the presentation? Is that correct?
Yeah, it was a collaborative effort, but yes.
Okay. Could you also, what I would also like to see is on this map, I think that this aerial map looks like it's probably Google Earth or something. This aerial map, could you, I see you have a star for the subject property. Would you also, for my purposes, take this map and identify all of the developments around this property, some of which I mentioned that are already affordable? So that I can see graphically the location and proximity of those properties to the subject property. And Ms. Matson, you did also touch on something that I was going to ask. Could you also let us know, of the 218 units that you're proposing, the bedroom counts for those, the mix of those bedrooms? And are they going to be 1 bathroom, 2 bathrooms? If you could provide that as well.
Yeah, of course. So with the 218 units, that is assuming all 1 bedrooms. As I previously mentioned, this concept is just to show like what could be shown on the site. So that unit mix is not determined yet. It will be determined in the future once we have a better idea what to best offer the community. So that could be a mix of 1s and 2s and 3s. Just once we can determine that, that would be when we actually have that final unit mix.
Okay, but you're saying right now it's all 1 bedroom, 218 1-bedroom units.
Yes, currently.
Okay, and so if this body so desired to condition on that, then that would be fine, because that's currently what you're proposing, correct?
We'd like to, sorry, say that again, just one more time.
Okay, you just stated that the 218 units that you're proposing at this moment are being considered to be only 1 bedrooms, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so if this body so desired to condition this application on that so that they're all 1-bedroom units, you would be fine with that, correct?
So our goal for this to rezone basically is to rezone to the highest density possible. And so our ask would to not be limited to this exact plan, but to
Okay.
allow us the flexibility to determine the best unit mix for the site.
Okay, thank you. So with that, then my ask would be then to tell me realistically what you would be proposing, because it sounds like the 1-bedroom, all 218 are 1 bedroom. It's just something to present to get through this process, but it could be completely different at the end of the day, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Well, not necessarily.
I would just like to, okay, Mr. Haymore, you'd like to.
Yeah, so we wanted to be candid that the max number of units is 218, and that's if it's all 1 bedroom. But as Ashley said, if some of the units, because of the market and feedback from the neighborhood, is that they desire 2-bedroom units or 3-bedroom units, then some of the units will become larger and therefore the unit yield will be less. So for instance, if it's 200 1-bedroom and it's 5 2-bed, 5, you see where I'm going with this. So the 218 is the maximum yield. It may be less than that, likely will be the larger number of units. But what we didn't want to do is say 200, and then it turns out to be more than that. In terms of the amenities, Mr. Atkins, one of the things that we looked at, because obviously if we can provide all 7, we would just do that. It's the challenges under the code. There's a list of 9 possible amenities. So for instance, one of them speaks of baseball fields and soccer fields and football fields. Wouldn't that be wonderful? On this site, you can see there's just not simply enough, width to provide that level of a field. And so we're basing it on what the code list is. And we do believe, we can definitely provide the 5. Others, include enhanced landscaping. We're not opposed to providing enhanced landscaping. The code doesn't define what that is. And so really maybe that's a conversation with staff about what does that mean? And if we can agree upon that, then that may obviate the need for relief from that. So we're sort of looking at the code, and then the last thing I'll say about amenities in the R4 district, it says that new projects on undeveloped property must include 7 of the required amenities. That's where we got the 7 number. But then later on in the same code, it says multifamily shall include an amenity package of 2 or more amenities. And so within the code itself, it's not entirely clear. It's possible that we only need to provide 2 under the code, but we went with the higher number just to be safe. And so it's not a desire to shortchange or provide less amenities, but it's reading the code for what it is, and then understanding the parcel and doing the very best that we can, because it's in our interest to provide the best and the most amenities for our residents, because they're going to want to live here. The more amenities and the higher quality amenities that there are.
Okay. Yes, thank you. And thank you for pointing out that what seems to be a contradiction. So I'll ask staff to please note that. And I'm asking staff to do that because at the moment, the city is in the process of doing a code update. And so as these things come up in meetings like this, because surely it would be difficult to put a soccer field or a football field there and those things. And so, and if there's a contradiction in terms of the numbers that is being required based on the residential type, then we want to know that so that those things can be addressed in the rewrite of the code. So thank you for that. Commissioners, any other questions of Mr. Haymore or Ms. Madsen? I see that Commissioner McKnight has raised her hand. Commissioner McKnight, you have the floor.
Yes, I have a question in terms of the parking. You may have included this in the presentation, but I don't recall. Is it 1 parking space per unit? Or what's the park situation? And if there's enough space on the plan, your current plan for the parking at all, if you can speak on that for me.
Yes, thank you. That's a great question. We are in the Cleveland Avenue overlay, and the parking requirement for it, and Taylor, please correct me if I'm wrong. I am by no means an expert on the East Point Code, but I believe it's 1 parking space per unit. And so what we've done is shown 218 parking spaces, which corresponds with the maximum 218 units. And so it's 1-to-1. We don't want to provide a sea of parking any more than we have to, but at the same time, if the requirement is 1 per unit, we're going to meet that.
Okay, so is there, if it's 1 per unit, is there area for visitor parking? Or they would have to just park on the street?
No, they would not park on the street. Frankly, there is not. We have very little frontage, which is just about 50 feet if you're looking at the site plan. Again, there's quite a bit of parking right here as you come into the development. And let me just get you the specifics. So if you look at the site plan, I know this is not easy to see. Let me see if I can zoom in. Kind of just tell me if this is helpful or not. But if you look up here, we've got 8 ADA parking, that's 2 per building, 30 compact parking, that's 9 by 16 foot parking spaces, and then 180 parking spaces at 9 by 18. So they're just a little bit longer, for non-compact cars. But in terms of visitor parking, it would just be, where you'd expect visitors around the clubhouse where folks are coming, the leasing office, things like that. And then, around the buildings, it wouldn't necessarily be reserved parking. And so, but again, this is what the code requires. And so that's what we're proposing.
Okay.
So and by the way, it's a maximum number. So we, under the code, we can't well, let me not speak out of turn. Taylor, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe it's in the overlay, it's a maximum of 1 space per unit, and so that's what we're providing. So we wouldn't have to seek a variance to go above that.
Okay, so then if there's two, or if the apartment changes from 1 bedroom to 2 or 3 bedrooms, those 2 and 3 bedroom units will still only have 1 parking space for them.
That is what the
According to the
overlay.
code?
Yes, that's what the overlay seeks to do is to not allow more than 1 space per unit. And the idea there is to reduce the amount of parking and impervious surface. And it looks like Taylor's got her hand up, so I might have said something wrong. And that's why Taylor's here to make sure that we get it right.
Yes, I will call on those for the floor. And I did see that Ms. Solomon had raised her hand. And Ms. Solomon, would you like to respond or add to what Mr. Haymore has presented in response to Commissioner McKnight's question?
Yes, I am trying to share my screen. Please let me know if you are able to see it.
Not yet.
Because let me
Okay.
stop my screen. There we go.
All right, are you all able to see it now?
I see your screen, yes.
Okay, perfect, thank you. So I pulled up the Cleveland Avenue Overlay District for multifamily. There is a section that speaks to parking. While he is not entirely correct, he's not entirely incorrect either. So there's 1 parking space per unit of 1,000 square feet or less, and 1/2 per unit greater than 1,000 square feet in the Cleveland Overlay District when it comes to multifamily units.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Solomon.
You're welcome.
Commissioner McKnight, does that answer your question as it relates to parking?
Yes, it does, and you can see where my only concern is for that. If it does change where there's 2 and 3 bedroom apartments in the unit, 1 parking space just wouldn't be enough. So then, my concern is then what happens there. So that was it, but that did answer my question for now.
Thank you so much. I am now going to recognize Commissioner Presley. Commissioner McKnight, if you would please lower your hand.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have some of the same concerns, or not really concerns, but just thoughts that you've had as well about the density. It was stated that they didn't want for this project to have any limitations of just a 1-bedroom apartment. That could it be more rooms, 2-3 bedrooms. But if they only have 218 parking, 8 are already assigned to ADA accessibility, no visitation parking. I myself own 2 vehicles. I'm a 2-vehicle owner. What happens when there's a partner or partnership or spouses or cohabitation where because they don't want any limitations, where there are 2 occupants in a 1-bedroom and or a 2-bedroom, and they have multiple vehicles such as myself and others. So that's going to be, it's not conducive. Can they get rid of a building and maybe put a mid-rise
Well, while we're on
parking
the,
lot?
okay, while we're on the subject of parking, Mr. Haymore, could you please, Ms. Solomon, can you give Mr. Haymore screen sharing capabilities again, please? And Mr. Haymore, can you put up the site plan again? Okay.
Oops. Sorry about that.
Yes, if you would enlarge that for me, please. And let me adjust my screen so it'll get bigger on my screen as well. So go out, go back just a little, because I want to go back to the frontage on East Washington. So to answer or to speak to Commissioner McKnight's question about on-street parking, you are correct. There's so little frontage on East Washington, and the majority of the frontage is on Normanberry. And because of the topography, this property sits way high up, and Normanberry does not have any on-street parking because it is a busy thoroughfare. As we started to talk more about parking, let me just share with you my concerns. Entering this property, how many parking spaces are there at the very entrance coming into this along this drive before we get to any of the apartment buildings?
Well, I can count them on the fly.
They should have a number. Usually
Yeah,
the doors will have a number.
There is. Let me see if I can see a better version of that. Here we go. All right, let me count these. Oh, come on now. Well, they're just as bad. Let me just go ahead and count them. Basically, Chairman, you're asking about the ones that sort of run parallel to the property line, right?
That is correct.
Okay, so let me just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16.
And I'm trying to get up to where the first building starts. So I don't need all of them along that property line.
Okay. Up until the first building, there's probably about 25.
Okay. So that's a little more than 10% of the unit numbers and the parking spaces. So this is my point. I'm always going to believe that people should live in dignity. And so if there's only one space per unit, people are going to be clamoring for the space closest to their unit. I take into consideration persons who are senior. I take in because everyone who is senior is not in an ADA spot. I take into consideration persons who may have small children. I take into consideration inclement weather. I take into consideration all of those things. And if I ask everyone in this meeting, would you want to be relegated to getting home, rushing home to get a space close to your unit, knowing that it may be gone, having to park at the very entrance of this community, walk halfway across, I don't even know how far it is, just to get to your unit with a child, a bag of groceries, your briefcase, or whatever it is? No one is going to want to do that. And so the other concern that I have, and I was alluding to that in my presentation, I am against 100% affordable housing. We talked about persons renting here between the 60 and 80% AMI. This is a concentration of poverty. My point in trying to bring out the instances of other developments around here is that, guess what? You put people here and there are no amenities. You will not have a grocer, a quality grocer. You won't have any other amenities for these persons who may live here. People should live in dignity and they should live in amenity-rich communities. I do not believe that the only financing for development of this property is for affordable units. And so I am opposed to this adamantly for those reasons and even more of those. And so I do not believe that this is the highest and best use, because that was an opinion when it was stated earlier. I do not believe that it's the highest and best use of this parcel. I believe that if we're trying to grow as a city, and if we're trying to have the things that the residents have said they wanted, residents have talked about a quality grocery store, they've talked about cafes and restaurants, but when there is a concentration of poverty and there are low incomes and not enough disposable income, those businesses are not coming. And as a result of that, they're not quality jobs in the area either. And so having these parking spaces on this side of the property, 1 unit, 1 parking space, and someone having to clamor to get that parking space and may have to, as a senior or a person with disabilities or a person who may have a short-term disability. I myself did not walk for 2 years because of an accident that I was in a wheelchair. I wouldn't be able to live here. People should live in dignity. And so you can take that to your client and see if there's another opportunity to mix this in a different way to provide those things so that people can live in dignity and feel good about where they live. And also it could contribute to the growth and development that East Point is striving for. I'm going to recognize Commissioner McKnight at this time. Commissioner McKnight, you're on mute.
I'm sorry. I didn't raise my hand. It doesn't look that way on this end. So.
Okay, your hand was still raised. I'm sorry.
Oh, it still looks raised? Okay.
Yeah, it's still raised. I'm now going to recognize Commissioner Joseph Fields.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm always in favor of new developments and also to increase the density of East Point so that we can have more residents here. One thing
Commissioner Fields, just 1 second, please. I'm not sure if it's just me. Commissioner Fields. Commissioner Fields, 1 second, please.
1-bedroom apartment.
Commissioner Fields. Okay. And I don't think that it was just me because I saw that the court reporter raised her hand because I think she could not hear him. Commissioner Mark Fields.
No, I was just confirming that you were correct. I could not understand what was being said.
Yes, and the court reporter could not either, and that's why I was trying to stop him, but it looks like his connection got so bad it may have dropped him. Okay. Any other comments, questions of the applicant for this? Yes, yes, Commissioner Bryant. Yes.
My concern is I haven't heard this being mentioned tonight. That's a flood area there because there's a creek there behind that store and that hill right there, and there's a creek down there, and sometimes that water, and when you're gonna build that type of project that they're proposing to build, I'm just concerned about, have they thought about the flood area, how they're going to move the water as far as what they're planning on doing with the water when it rains a lot?
Are you're mentioning to in the corner of the property?
Yes.
Jeff,
because there's a creek down there.
Jeff, if you move that the site plan to the left so we can see that portion, that would be super helpful.
Can you see it here? Or are we talking about on the north end?
To the other side, yeah, to the other side of the property.
Towards the entrance?
On my end, I'm looking at the entrance right now. So if we go to the end of the property near the last building where that hammerhead is.
Yeah, that's where I am, but it's not moving for you, huh?
No, at least on my end. I don't know if anyone else's can see it.
It's right there off Normanberry.
Yes, so that is a great point. So yes, normally that would, but the topography is so steep that the buildings and the site just aren't, they're up significantly above the grade of the creek. So any flood issues we wouldn't be worried about. And we'll be building retaining walls to structurally support all of that.
And to comply with all buffers.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. But we did look at that to answer your question, yes.
Mhm.
That was my question, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Bryant. Any other questions of the applicant? Okay, very well. Mr. Haymore, Ms. Matson, next week, Thursday, I've let you know some of the other things that I would like to see. Meeting is at 7 p.m. and staff will send you out a link for that meeting. So thank you so much for your time and your presentation, and we look forward to seeing you next week.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Chairman.
You're welcome. It seems that our applicant for item number 2, which is a rezoning at 1500 Nabel Avenue, case number 2023R and Robert Z as in zebra -002-12 is present. And so at this time, I will ask Mitch Griffin to please unmute. And if you've got a presentation, do you need screen sharing capabilities?
Okay.
Mr. Griffin, do you need screen sharing capabilities?
No, sir, I don't. I do not have any type of visual presentation.
Okay. All right. The floor is yours. You can present your case.
Hey, everybody. My name is Mitch Griffin. I'm one of the co-owners of PhysEd at 1500 Nabel Avenue in East Point. We have spoken several times with Taylor. We have had a gym there for over the past 3 years. We are hoping to add some different type of amenities, such as the ability to have a chiropractor on site, a physical therapist, a barber, a lot of self-care options that our current zoning does not allow us to have. Right now, we're zoned as an industrial. And in speaking with Taylor, we have spoken about going from industrial to a mixed commercial industrial use that will allow us just the opportunity to have more amenities for our clients and for the community to use the space with.
Okay. Commissioners, have any questions of Mr. Griffin? Any questions of Mr. Griffin? Yes, Commissioner McKnight, I'll recognize you.
Hi, yes. I was just wondering, I have had a chance to pull up your actual address. What other businesses are currently in the area where you're located?
So we are about a quarter mile north of downtown East Point. If you're going up Main Street, on the right-hand side is Tri-Cities High School and Jefferson Park. On the left-hand side, there's a Crystals. There's a space that y'all have recently been working with. It'll be the auto mechanic school that's looking for a different zoning. And then we're just past that on the left-hand side of Main Street. So about a quarter mile to half a mile north of Main Street.
So your business is in a building of its own, it's not shared with other businesses?
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner McKnight. Any other questions of Mr. Griffin? Okay. Thank you so much for your presentation, Mr. Griffin. And what I'll share with you is that as Commissioner McKnight was asking, she was really not familiar in terms of where your property is located. I cannot tell you how to present your case, but if there's anything that you think that we should see that will assist in a favorable vote for you, I would tell you to put that together or have that prepared.
Yes, sir. We'll have that ready for next week.
Yes, so because there could be other questions, and there's some commissioners who are not even here this evening, so that'll give them an idea of exactly where you're located, what you're trying to do, what you'd like to add, all of those things, and what's around you.
Okay.
I'm going to now recognize Commissioner Lovett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have one question, and that is, I'm looking for the full list of options or choices or amenities that you want to put in there. And I'd want to know from staff, with what he's looking to put in there, what other offerings can be done in that building if in fact we approve it. I'm just trying to get a list of what he's looking for and what does that
Right.
do to any growth.
Right. So you want to see what are the approved or allowed uses in MXCI,
Very much,
correct?
yes, that's correct.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
You may, absolutely.
Thank you. In the zoning district, MXCI, it is a mixed-use commercial industrial district. There's a list. I'll basically start off stating that all of the uses permitted in all of our commercial districts and our MIX district is also allowed here as well. So we have CI, C2, CL, and CR zoning districts, and then there's also a list of other things as well. I believe in his application, he stated that barbershops and chiropractic services and things like that of that nature, that is also allowed in the other permitted uses within C1, C2, CL, and so forth. So gyms, exercise facilities, and things of that nature.
It looked like there were art galleries, breweries, artisan,
Yes.
movie theaters, bookstores, banks, artisan workshops.
And I'll also go to C1 as well, so you can see our other commercial districts that we have in the city.
Okay. All right, so the barbershops are there, art galleries, so there are brew pubs, banks, car wash.
Sorry, my computer's freezing. I may have too many tabs open.
Yeah, so this would be interesting. Thank you for that question, Commissioner Lovett, because there's some of them that I would like to condition not to be allowed. A car wash on the main street, I'd like to see, more of the breweries, art galleries, all of those things. But there could be some that this body may feel that it would want to condition against. So
If I could
Yeah.
hop in real quick.
Sure.
So we currently own 2 lots. Our parking lot is actually zoned commercial at the time, right now, and our building is zoned industrial. So it's a little odd that, they're separated. The entire area around us is zoned commercial. We're actually, you mentioned you wouldn't want a car wash. We obviously would not want one of those either. We're actually going through the permitting process, or just begun that. We have actually a mobile coffee shop that we're looking to get permitted. So we're hoping to use that space to provide a lot of other amenities to the citizens of East Point. And the building is just the starting point of us being able to, open that up to more commercial type uses.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner McKnight, your hand is still raised. I'm not sure if you have another question. If not, I know that Commissioner Mark Fields has raised his hand, and happy to recognize Commissioner Mark Fields.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner McKnight.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's just really a question about the Main Street overlay that we've been discussing. So does this property fall into that overlay?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
So the property, let me see, I'll share my screen to show the.
And while you're pulling that up, Ms. Solomon, let me ask
Yes,
a question. Because it's very interesting what Mr. Griffin just shared. The parking lot is zoned commercial.
Yes.
Other around that are zoned commercial. Would what you're trying to do in terms of uses, Mr. Griffin, would those uses be allowed under the commercial zoning district? And the reason I'm asking that question is so that there could be consistency with the zoning, so that we wouldn't then have a situation where we have a commercial parking lot and an MXCI building and then commercial all around it. So does the commercial zoning district prohibit any use that you're seeking to add?
I don't know the uses backwards and forwards, but I do not believe so. And in speaking with Ms. Solomon, I'll be perfectly honest with you. We've put our life savings into purchasing this building. It's something that it took us a decade to get the amount of money to be able to buy a commercial property. After surviving COVID as a gym was no easy task. One of the things that we spoke to Ms. Solomon about was us wanting to be able to be flexible with the property if, God forbid something were to happen and we were to need to, sell the property or rent the property. For us as a business owners, we were looking to have as much flexibility as possible with the zoning of the building.
Okay. Yeah, the challenge for me that would pose is that you would then have a situation similar to what you have now. You've got this building that is I-1, the parking lot is commercial, and then everything else around it is commercial. Is that correct? So what we would like to get to is if all of the properties in that area were the same zoning, so commercial, if you will, as long as it would allow you to do, then there's consistency with all of those things in that area versus, because otherwise we could have a situation where there could be spot zoning. And completely understand what you're saying in terms of being able to be nimble. If there were a situation like we had with COVID, that's absolutely understandable and happy to hear that you were able to survive. But my real question was, of all the uses that you would like to do, would those things be allowed under the commercial zoning? And then that way the zoning would all be consistent.
I believe so. I don't know. Yeah, I haven't looked through y'all's zoning top to finish, top to bottom on the commercial, but I believe most of them we can do with the commercial zoning.
Okay. Ms. Solomon, you were going to add something?
I just wanted to respond to Commissioner Fields' question. The parcel in question, the 1500 Naval Avenue, is not a part of the downtown overlay, but the parcel before it that the applicant owns is.
Okay. And are those adjacent? They're right next to each other?
They're right next to each other. I'm sorry. Let me see if I can zoom in here. So the case that we're here for this evening will be the 1500 Naval, which is here, and the parking lot, which is here, is in the downtown overlay and is identified as commercial redevelopment.
Okay, all right. Okay. And in terms of uses, Ms. Solomon, could you pull up the uses for that? And could you see, Mr. Griffin, if what you are proposing to do would fall up under the uses that are allowed in the commercial redevelopment, the CR? Under the MXCI, breweries are allowed in MXCI, correct, Ms. Solomon?
Yes, they are.
But only brew pubs are allowed in commercial redevelopment, right?
I believe so.
Okay, all right. And I do like, because sort of this trend around food and food halls is several of them, one just down the street, just at White Street and Lee. I know that there's a food hall that's there now. There's a brewery there, and it gets a lot of community folk coming out there. So, okay. Well, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Okay. Any other questions of the applicant? All right. Hearing none and seeing none, those are all the cases that we have for this evening. And so we will see everyone next week, 7 o'clock, and staff will send out the login credentials.
Yes, I will.
All right. Thank you all so very much.
Thank you for your time.
Have a good evening.
Good evening.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, everyone. Happy New Year.